Wings and chains. Kael was not an ordinary human cadet. He was born in a lab, raised in a dome, and trained by the military from the age of 5. He had wings, real ones, sharp and metal, powered by nerve signals and artificial muscles that stretched across his back like folded blades. At Titanus Military Academy, he was the best flyer in his class, known as the Iron Falcon among cadets. But Kael didn't care about titles, he just wanted to protect the skies. To prove that he belonged, the academy was cold, strict, and full of rules. One rule above all others stood firm: never risk your life for an alien. Aliens were viewed as unstable, dangerous, or simply not worth the risk. Kael had followed every order, every protocol, until the day everything changed. It happened during a live combat training session near the border cliffs. Kael and the other cadets were in full gear, flying across the broken rocks with blasters set to stun. The sky was filled with smoke, drones, and training bots shooting practice rounds. The mission was clear: reach the beacon tower, disable the sentry AI, and return without dying. Kael dived through clouds and fire, dodging bots and tagging targets with perfect aim. Then he heard a scream. It wasn't a human scream. It was higher, thinner, and full of fear. He slowed mid-air and scanned the rocks below. Through his visor, he saw a shape crawling beside a broken cliff, small, hurt, and glowing faintly violet under the sky. It was a girl, an alien girl. Her skin shimmered like polished stone, and her eyes were wide with panic. She was bleeding from her shoulder, and trying to pull herself away from a fallen drone. Other cadets flew right past her, eyes locked on their own goals. Kael hovered for a second, torn between the mission and the scream in his head. He looked at her again, saw the fear in her face, and made his choice. He dropped like a stone, folding his wings and diving fast. The wind roared around him as he landed beside her. "What's your name?" he asked, kneeling beside her. The girl didn't answer, just reached out with shaking hands. Kael scooped her up gently, feeling her blood soak through his gloves. With one strong flap of his wings, he lifted off again, ignoring the alarms buzzing. In his helmet, he flew out of the training zone, past the mission area, and straight to the emergency clinic inside the academy. The medics looked shocked when he burst through the doors with an alien girl in his arms. They took her without questions. But the silence that followed was heavy. The next day, Kael was summoned. The officers didn't praise him. They didn't thank him. They called him reckless, disobedient, and unfit for command. "You broke the rule," Commander Tavis said, his voice cold and hard. "You endangered your team for a non-human." Kael stood tall, his fists clenched. "She was bleeding," he replied. "She needed help. I couldn't leave her." "Then you are no longer a soldier," the commander said. "You are dismissed." They took his badge, his access, and finally they clipped his wings, not physically, but digitally, locking the control chips in his spine. The pain was sharp and quick, but the real pain was emotional. Kael left the academy that day with his head held high and his heart broken. His wings hung dead behind him, useless and heavy like broken dreams. He moved to the lower levels of the city, far from the towers and skies. He found work in old factories and cargo yards, anywhere that didn't ask about his past. But every night, when the stars were clear, he looked up and remembered the moment he saved her, the alien girl. He never learned her name, never saw her again. But her eyes stayed in his memory, like fire in the cold. He didn't regret what he did, not for a second. But what Kael didn't know was that the girl had not forgotten him either, and that soon, her path would cross his again, not as a stranger, but as something far more important. Flight of Exiles. The lower city was always dark. Tall towers above blocked the sunlight, and the streets were lit by flickering neon signs and the glow of broken advertisement drones. Kael walked alone, his coat pulled tight, his wings hidden beneath it like secrets he no longer wanted to remember. He worked loading cargo at a junk port, lifting crates with muscle and pain, never speaking more than he had to. No one asked about his past, and he never told them. But at night, he still dreamed of the sky. He dreamed of the moment he caught her, the alien girl, her glowing violet skin pressed against his chest as he flew her away from danger. She had never spoken a word, but her eyes had said everything. One night, the rain was heavy, and the wind pushed dust through the alleys. Kael returned home soaked, ready to collapse into sleep, but someone was waiting in the shadows near his door. He paused, reaching for the shock blade hidden in his boot. Then the figure stepped into the light. It was her, the alien girl, older now, her hair longer, wearing a torn cloak and bleeding from her leg, but it was her, without a doubt. She looked up at him with the same golden eyes and whispered, Help me again." Kael didn't ask questions. He pulled her inside and closed the door. She collapsed onto his couch, shivering from exhaustion. Kael grabbed a medkit and cleaned her wounds, wrapping them carefully. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "They're chasing me," she replied, her voice hoarse but clear. "They want what's inside me." He looked at her, confused. She sat up slowly and pulled a glowing chip from her cloak. "This holds the peace code," she said. "My people want peace with Earth, but someone wants war. I ran from them. From both sides," she continued, "but I knew only one person who ever chose kindness over rules. You." Kael stared at the chip, then at her. "Riva." She told him her name this time. She was the daughter of an alien diplomat, sent secretly to Earth to study its people, but when the wrong side found out, they tried to silence her forever. Kael's rescue had ruined their plan once, but now they were back to finish it. "We have to reach the Sky Tower," Riva said. "It's the only place where the signal can be sent." Kael's jaw tightened. "That's restricted airspace," he said. "Even if I could fly you can," she said. "Your wings were only locked, not broken." She handed him a small device. A black crystal disc with glowing symbols. "I stole this from the academy," she said. "It will unlock your wings." Kael hesitated, his hand hovering over the disc. He had sworn never to fly again. Not after what they did, but Riva's eyes were full of trust, the same trust he saw that day on the cliffs. He pressed the disc to his back, and fire raced through his nerves. His wings flared open behind him, humming with life. They were slower now, stiffer, but still strong. Kael smiled for the first time in months. They built a glider out of scrap and rigged it with boosters. Riva patched the navigation while Kael modified the wings. At midnight, they launched into the air, disappearing into the mist above the lower city. Drones spotted them quickly, flashing red lights and blaring alarms. Kael dodged and twisted through the towers, Riva hanging on tightly. Laser shots whizzed past them, some hitting the glider, burning holes into the metal, but Kael didn't stop. He climbed higher, his wings pulsing with every beat of his heart. "We're close," Riva shouted, pointing ahead. The sky tower stood like a silver needle above the clouds, lightning dancing around its tip. Kael dove low, then rose sharply, spiraling around the defense systems. One last drone locked on them with a loud beep. Kael rolled hard, crashing through a side panel and landing roughly onto the tower's platform. He and Riva tumbled onto the floor, bruised but alive. "We made it," she gasped, holding the chip tightly. Kael stood and looked up at the tower's beacon core, glowing with power. But he also saw something else, shadows moving above them, dark shapes with metal wings, soldiers, his old squad. The academy had found them. And they weren't alone. Kael pulled Riva behind him as the soldiers landed, weapons raised. They weren't here to talk. And Kael knew he would have to fight. The people he once called brothers, to protect the girl he once saved, and this time, he wouldn't hold back. Rise beyond the academy, the wind howled at the top of the sky tower, lightning flashed behind the clouds, painting the world in blue and silver. Kael stood tall, wings spread wide, his coat flapping in the wind like a banner. Behind him, Riva held the glowing chip close to her chest, eyes locked on the signal console. In front of him stood 5 soldiers, armored and armed, their jet wings humming like angry bees. At the center was Commander Drex, Kael's old squad leader, once his mentor, now his enemy. "You should have stayed grounded," Kael, Drex said coldly, his visor flashing red. "You know why I left," Kael replied. "You taught me to fight for what's right." "She's an alien spy," one of the soldiers growled. "She's using you. She's more human than you ever were," Kael snapped, stepping forward. "She wants peace. And you want silence." The soldiers raised their weapons. Kael tensed, his hand twitching toward his blade. Riva reached for him, her touch gentle. "You don't have to fight," she said. "There's another way." But Kael knew there wasn't. The academy wanted control, not truth, and they would kill her to keep their secrets buried. "Stay behind me," Kael whispered, then launched into the air. The battle erupted instantly, wings and weapons clashing in the sky like thunder and fire. Kael moved fast, striking with fury, his broken wings burning. With renewed power, he dodged one attacker, spun midair, and slammed his boot into another's chest, sending him crashing down. Shots flew past him, hot and sharp, grazing his shoulder and searing his jacket. But Kael didn't stop. He fought like a storm, fierce and free. Drex flew at him from above, blade drawn. Their weapons clashed with a sharp ring, sparks flying between them. "You betrayed your kind," Drex snarled, pushing Kael back. No, Kael growled. I remembered what it means to have one. They spun, twisted, kicked through the air. Kael's blade cut across Drex's armor, leaving a glowing mark, but Drex was strong, fast, relentless. He slammed into Kael with his shoulder, knocking him toward the tower's edge. Kael hit the rail hard, the metal groaning under his weight. He dropped his blade. Breath knocked from his lungs. Drex raised his weapon for the final blow, then a blast of light struck his shoulder, sending him tumbling away. Riva stood behind Kael, holding a stolen plasma pistol, her hands shaking. Kael got to his feet, grabbed his blade, and soared upward again. One by one, he disabled the remaining soldiers, not killing, just stopping them. He didn't want blood, only space for peace. The sky fell silent as the last soldier dropped his weapon and backed away. Drex lay on the ground, groaning in pain. Kael landed beside Riva, breathing hard, his wings sparking but still strong. Go, he said, send the signal. Riva placed the chip into the console and pressed her palm to the crystal pad. The beacon lit up like a second sun, firing a pulse into the sky. A wave of energy shot into orbit, carrying her voice, her code, and her truth across the stars. Moments later, the clouds above parted. A fleet of alien ships appeared, sleek, glowing, and silent. They didn't come to attack, they came to answer. One of the ships descended slowly, a soft hum filling the air. A figure emerged from the light. Tall and graceful, with markings like Riva's but older. My daughter, the figure said, arms wide, you are safe. Riva ran into her mother's arms, tears streaming down her face. Kael stepped back, unsure, watching the moment unfold. Then Riva turned and held out her hand. This is Kael, she said proudly. He saved Meatweiss. The alien leader bowed her head with deep respect. You have honored us, she said, to Kael, and shown us the best of your kind. Kael felt the weight lift from his shoulders, not just from the battle, but from years of being told who he was allowed to be. He wasn't just a soldier or an exile, he was a protector, a choice maker, a man who followed his heart. Later, under the stars on the alien flagship, Kael stood beside Riva at the viewing window. The earth below glowed in the distance, peaceful and unaware. I don't know where I belong anymore, Kael said quietly. Riva looked up at him, her fingers brushing his. Then make a new place, she whispered. With me. Kael turned to her, smiled, and nodded. I'd fly with you anywhere, he said. And so, the winged soldier who was once expelled for saving an alien girl, found something far greater than ranks or medals. He found freedom, he found love, and this time, he would never fall again.